The topic of this lecture is making Java friendly. As experienced Java developers, we know that Java is extremely powerful. It's versatile, it's powerful, it's dynamic, and it's fun to work with. But think about it from the perspective of a new developer who just starts to learn Java. Maybe that person has come from Python or Go. The first instinct of this person is that Java is difficult. And the reason for this is pretty obvious when you actually look at it. Let's take an example. Let's say you give an exercise to a new Java developer and ask him to write a function which just sums two integers and returns it. So here's an example that I have shown on the screen. This new programmer would write something like this. There's a function called sum which takes two integers a and b, which returns a plus b, and that method is being called from inside the main. You can see the main itself is static, and that's why the sum also has to be static. In practice, we consider that as bad programming in general. Generally, we use objects. So right off the bat, here are the newbie programmers trying to do things in static methods. Not a good thing. But you also see something interesting. The whole point of the exercise is for the newbies to know what are the variables, how to create functions, simple stuff. But what the developer is doing is he's writing keywords like package, public, class, static, arguments, string arrays. These are something that he does not need to know at this point. So there's far too much ceremony going on from the perspective of this new programmer. Coming from a Python or Go background, this comes as a shock. Because of this, there is a Java enhancement proposal which tries to improve and remove the ceremony. The first proposal here is to simplify the main method. The main method does not need to be public static anymore. And if you don't need the arguments, you can also remove the argument. So if you do that change, this exact code would look something like this. So you remove all of the ceremony around the main method. You can see that. This simplifies things a bit because not only is main now non-static, and because main is calling sum does not have to be static. Now that's a good thing, but this is not really a big change. How does the JVM decide which main method to call? Can we have multiple main methods in the same class? Some static, some non-static? First of all, in Java, you cannot have two methods, one static and one instance method with the same name and same arguments. Now here's actually how you can compile and run the program. This is no different than a regular Java program, except for that you have to add the enable preview and the release version out there. But coming back to how the JVM will choose which main method to call, there's a simple algorithm. The JVM will first look if there is a main method with arguments. Whether it is static or not is not important. If there is a main method with arguments, it will simply run that main method. If the main method is static, it will simply run it. If the main method is not static, then it will instantiate the class, and then after instantiating it, just call the main method with the necessary arguments. Now, if the main method with arguments is not there, is there a main method without arguments? Again, it follows the same logic and the JVM will execute it. But simplifying the main is not such a big change. The main change comes from implicit classes. Let's take a look. The second proposal is basically to remove the class and the package altogether. In Java, the methods and the variables are all within a class, and a class is within a package. But if this encapsulation is not really needed, then we really don't need to specify the class name and the package name. So in the example, you see that these are missing. So what this means is there is an implicit class name that is given to any file which does not contain the top level class. How do you run this program? If this class has no name, there's no way to instantiate and run it, so you can only run it as a source file. So here you're basically running the simple Java program.java, but you're specifying the enable preview flag as well as the source as 22. Here's another example where at the top level you have a variable, which is greeting, and then main instance method. So greeting is basically acts like a member variable of the implicit class that is defined for this, because there's no class defined here as well. So you can see that these two changes actually is pretty big, because it removes the ceremony and the new Java developers who come in learn the right things at the right time. They can start off learning all about variables, all about methods, and when they're ready, they can move on to classes. They can introduce classes in the same source file, modify the main method to include arguments if necessary. One other thing that you might be thinking is that why not just simply remove the main method? This was intentionally not done by the Java engineers because they felt that the learning of the newbie Java developers needs to be incremental. That means they can just simply add the class name and the package name and modify the main whenever they need it. So in short, there are three advantages that come with this change. One is definitely it reduces the ceremony. Second, there is a smooth ramp up for the new Java programmers. They learn the right things in Java at the right time. And the third part is that it definitely simplifies the script development in Java. So if I'm just going to write a simple script in Java, I don't have to give a class name or a package name, and I can just reduce the main method to simply a main with no arguments and just make use of implicit classes. Now, if you like this lecture, please go ahead and give a like for this video. Also, do subscribe to my channel.